a hero instrument is a French horn. I mean, it just is. Like, you hear it and you feel that, and there's no reason to mitigate that. There's no reason to go away from that, right? But then, what's a villain's instrument?
Heroes. It's an old-fashioned notion, but the world can still use them.
Ready.
Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
How are you, Laura?
I'm great. How are you?
Great too. So it's
Good.
such an honor to talking to you today.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So to start, The Marvels is your first Marvel movie. You
It
had
really
worked,
is.
on What If and Miss Marvel.
I
And for Miss Marvel, you used an orchestra, some Asian sounds,
Yes.
and choirs, and a very accent violin. Did you keep any of the music from Miss Marvel for this film?
No, but I learned a lot of lessons from Ms. Marvel. And one of them you mentioned, one of the things that I did for Ms. Marvel was use a South Asian choir. And it's actually, you're the first person to ask me this. When I recorded that choir, the idea was for me to go in with some ideas and then kind of create in the room what might be the final result, because in Indian classical music and in Indian music, it's a whole musical system that it takes a lifetime to understand. So I had a small group of singers, and I experimented with it on that show. And I took that experiment and did it again on the Marvels. And so this idea of recording a small group of singers and coming in with ideas, but creating stuff in the room with the singers was something I did on two separate occasions for the Marvels. So I think it wasn't so much, a continuity musically, but there was a continuity in process. And I think that's one of the cool things about being a composer is it's a lifelong of learning. Like, I learned something on every project that I work on, and then it helps you with the next project. No matter how much experience you have, you're always learning.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Nia Da Costa is a young director, and The
Yeah.
Marvel is her third film. And what did she ask you for the score, and what was it like working with her?
Nia's fantastic. She's a really, really well-prepared director, and she knows what she wants, and she's very, very clear about communicating that. So her her youth didn't play into that really for me at all. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh wow, you're sitting with somebody who's sophisticated, who's incredibly fluent in the language of film, and incredibly clear about what she wanted from the score. And what she said she wanted were sort of two things right off the bat. She said she wanted a space opera. And I thought, okay,
Okay,
you got the right woman for that gig, you
great.
know? And that plays into what your previous question, and playing with choirs and creating voice. And she said she wanted an iconic theme. She wanted to really have, like, the superhero theme for
Oh,
this trio.
the
And
main theme?
she wanted, yeah, the main theme. She wanted something new and something collaborative and something that really represented who these three powerhouses were.
Awesome. And talking about that, there are so many superheroes movies out there. So what is the process you follow to distance yourself from other works by other composers?
I think you distance and you fall into simultaneously. I think that's the whole thing. I think that there is a thing that you want to do that is like everybody else, which is that you want to have a memorable 2 to 4 bar theme, so that there is a signature, I think, everywhere. I mean, I think John Williams did it. I think it's in the MCU. And you want that iconic signature for your characters. And I think that that's where you fall into doing something that other people have done. I think that's great. I think there are all kinds of other places, infinite other spaces to distinguish yourself. And I don't really think about that so much, because at this point in my musical life, I feel like I have a signature. You know,
Yes.
I feel like there is a sound that I have and a sound that I do. Um, and often I call myself a maximalist. So, in other words, I like a lot of stuff in my music. I like melody and counterpoint and harmony and big orchestras and a lot of different ideas going simultaneously. And so I think that I don't think so much about, oh gee, I've got to sound different from something or other. I think about what can I do to make this fit within the MCU in this particular case? And then what's particular to this project? What is this project asking of me? And then I answer that question.
I love it. Laura, talking about the industry, you are one of the founders of the Alliance for Women Film Composers. How
Yes.
difficult was it as a woman to start getting these jobs, these scores, in an industry that was practically carried out by men?
I've worked my entire career. I mean, I've never had like long periods of not working. So I've been successful for a long, long time. Where I think I saw that my career wasn't stepping up in the ways that my male colleagues were. So I think what I saw mostly is that there was a kind of a building block that men had that women didn't. It almost felt, and this is across industry, and once we started talking to each other, a lot of us have had this experience where it's not building on something. You're constantly like reinventing yourself. But if you're looking at, for example, what we're talking about today, you see that things have changed because I started with What If, and then that built to Ms. Marvel, and then that's built into this, which is a big budgeted movie. So now we're seeing, and you're seeing this across the board, where women are actually building substantial credits, and then they're able to parlay those credits into other credits. No one will ever ask me again if I can compose music for a large scale superhero film. And so that's why getting hired to this project is so significant for me. And every time a woman is hired, Pinar Toprak or Natalie Holt or Amy Dougherty on She-Hulk, they don't have to answer that question again. They can show from the work that they can do this. And the same goes for women directors, sound designers across and other kinds of representation, Latinx, Black. It's if there's an insecurity, that insecurity is immediately defeated, proof of the project.
You translate sense, characters, feelings, and more into music. How does your brain work? How do you do that?
What a great question. You asked before about how you try to differentiate yourself, or do I? And I think it's this combination of going with something that's tried and true. Like a hero instrument is a French horn. I mean, it just is. Like you hear it and you feel that. And there's no reason to mitigate that. There's no reason to go away from that, right? But then what's a villain's instrument? Well, in this case, it was 7 crazy flute players. So I think that you start to think about, where do I want to fall into kind of what's expected and what an audience will immediately translate into something they know. And then where do I want to move away from that? And that's kind of how you do it. I think there are things you carry from project to project, and there are things that you reinvent in a new project.
Laura, I don't have more questions because the time's up, but thank you so much. I really appreciate this time with you, and I love your music career.
Thank you so much, and thanks for asking such great questions.
Thank you so much.
My friend. Take care.
The Marvels, rated PG-13.
Monica, you gotta